Please note that the content of this episode has explicit language and is not suitable for underage listeners.
Hi, I'm CJ, and I've done phone sex for 23 years. Let's get started. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and if you work, a good time off, and here we go. This week's topic is another very interesting topic to me, and that is edging. Now, I know I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast, but I want to talk to you about it a little more today. I'll start by telling you that I got a call this week from someone who was new. He wrote me and said, would I do a girlfriend experiencing edging phone call? I wasn't quite sure what the girlfriend experience meant, but it is what it is, and I figured it out that it's a role play. So I said, sure, sounds fun. Now, as you know, I do not like every type of call I get, but I'm the kind of phone sex operator that will do whatever I can to make my customer happy. So he calls me. And he doesn't say much. I have to do most of the talking or moaning, and he keeps me on the phone for the first call for 40 minutes, which is great. He's happy at the end. Okay. I don't mind this every once in a while. My goal has always been to please my customer by getting them off, and this is completely the opposite. So when I get one of these calls, I often get frustrated because many, many times the caller doesn't want to orgasm. Many times, the caller wants this feeling to continue for days and days. That has been my experience. So it's really a challenge to have a caller like this. My brain is trained to have a caller that has an orgasm. And then I'm happy that they're happy, but this is very different. The next day he calls me again, and he will say something to me at some point, get on top of me. So I get on top of him. What am I supposed to do? I'm on top of him. So I start making noises. And the noises sound like this. Like I'm bouncing up and down slowly or grinding into him. And he'll say to me, just like that, just like that. And then he'll say, get off. And then he'll say, get on. And I'll say, well, if I get on, you might come. And he says, no, just get on. And I'll make noises again. And he'll go, speed up. And I'll go, And then he'll want me to get off. And it goes on and on, back and forth. But nothing happens. So when he finally finished, which took quite a while again, and it's hard. I mean, if you were to do this over and over, and you got to breathe, and you do that for 5, 6, 7 minutes, it is tiring. But it's my job, but it's tiring. So he finishes and he hangs up. Okay, and he thanks me. This time he writes me on the platform and he says, you're the best. Thank you so much. I'm going to call you 4 to 5 times a week. And I'm thinking, oh boy. On the one hand, it's great. I've got a new customer. It's money. But on the other hand, it's an edging call. It's not about me. I get it. But it's frustrating. But he's happy. So that's all that really matters. And that's what goes through my head. He proceeds to tell me more. I'm lonely. I'm disabled. I'm horny. The disabled part and the lonely part makes me sad. So then he says, I'm totally blind in my right eye. I'm 90% blind in my left. My ex-girlfriend used to abuse me. A phone sex girl rescued me. I was hit by a car and poisoned by gas. My ex mistreated me for almost 8 years. I have a lot of annoying health problems. I never imagined being alone at 42. I recently became friends with somebody from here. She's sweet. That's a lot of information. I mean, that is just like, whoa. Then he says, you seem patient and cool. And he sends me all his information. He sends me phone numbers and email addresses. And I'm not heartless. I feel terrible. Of course, he's going to be a new customer of mine and call me 4 to 5 times a week. and I will just enjoy it as best I can. When people tell me things like this, I tend to believe it. I've talked to a few people who sound handicapped, slow, and I feel that if I'm able to give them some pleasure, that makes me happy. So if he starts to call me and write me 3, 4, 5 times a week, I will make the best of it and know that I'm doing a good deed. I'm doing a good thing. Let's get back to the topic of edging now. I didn't know this was a thing until a few years ago, like I said before, and it just made me wonder why. So, of course, I had to look it up on the internet. I think I said that once before, and it says it can lead to a more intense orgasm, of course. It could increase satisfaction and variety in sex life. It can make sex last longer, which is really what happens when I get a phone call because it just makes the man last longer. So they have a stronger orgasm. It can improve your libido. It can build confidence. So there's a lot of really good reasons to edge. However, when you have been trained as a phone sex operator to please your caller, the way you please your caller is to get them to orgasm. And without getting a caller to orgasm, then it's frustrating for me because I want to make the caller happy. And the mindset is edging does make the caller happy, but it's a very different kind of happy for the phone sex operator, because if the caller is talking to you and saying, I've been edging for 3 days, which I've had, not being a guy, all I keep thinking is, don't you want to just squirt? Don't you just want to let it out and feel better? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not shaming anyone. I'm not saying it's wrong. But the thing is that when you call a phone sex line, at least my thought is you're calling so that the phone sex operator can get you off. That is usually the case, not with these edging calls. So it's the mindset has to change of the phone sex operator. That's me. And we have to start thinking, well, if they don't want to have an orgasm on the phone, it is okay. You are part of this process. You are helping them out in any way you can, which is a different way. And so that is where the mind has to go. You are helping them because I think of this as a service. I've told you that before. I think of this job as a service. I am providing a service, and my service is to help you achieve orgasm. That is typically what the service is. And that doesn't always happen because these guys don't want it to. They may want to edge for a week. It's possible. So it's different. I've had other callers call me and they've been edging for quite a while. They have girlfriends, they have wives. They do not want to orgasm. They just want to be sent to the brink and taken back, and to the brink and taken back. And they want to talk about it. I want to fuck my wife, or I want to fuck my girlfriend, or I want to fuck you, the phone sex operator, and I want you to get on top of me, or I want to get behind you. But I want to make you orgasm. I'm not going to this time. I will next time or the time after that. But this time, it's just all about you. Now, I've never talked to anyone where both the woman and the man, meaning girlfriend, wife, where they both have been edging at the same time. I think that would be very interesting. But definitely the man, for sure. You know, he's edging, and that is what they do. One of my regulars that I've talked to now for a couple of years will occasionally edge, but the way I see it is he wants me to give him permission to have an orgasm. And so he'll say something to the effect of, maybe I don't deserve it today. And to me, that's a little different. It's more of a submission thing versus I'm going to edge for a week. And when we've spoken, like, I'll say, nope, today you deserve it. And I will go through the motions and get him to orgasm. And there have been times where I'll say, nope, not today. I'm going to stop right here and it'll happen next time. And then if he does it while we're not on the phone, meaning if he orgasms, then there is some kind of punishment because he's honest with me. Well, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But if he says that he orgasmed while we were not talking and he wanted to be punished, that's different altogether. So what I'm trying to say is that he'll call me and tell me he's edging. And if he's been a good boy, I'll let him orgasm. If he's not been a good boy, he doesn't get to orgasm on that phone call. And if he orgasms while we're not on the phone, then he will get punished. So I'd like to know what you think about edging. If you've done it, what you think about it, holding off an orgasm so it's more powerful. Email me your comments. I'd love to know if you feel the same way I do, which is frustrating more than anything. I think if I was with a guy that wanted to edge, I really don't know how I'd feel. But on the phone, it's just frustrating because I want to please the person. And if this is pleasing them, like I said, and this makes them happy, then I'm happy. But I want a guy that I'm with to orgasm every single time. And I don't know if in person I'd be happy with someone edging. But if it was all about pleasing me, then maybe it'd be okay. I don't know. I received an email from someone who asked me how I determine what calls to take and what calls not to take. Well, since I don't know what the call is before I get it, I take all my calls. But, for example, I've mentioned this before. If somebody writes to me and asks me if I will take a certain call, then I can say yes or no. Recently, I got a message that said this: "Hey, can you do a silent call and role play? Role play me fucking you in your virgin ass. Any role play, and I'll be okay with that." This is an easy one. As I've told you before, I don't do silent calls. So I told him that. I'm sorry, I don't do silent calls. Most people just slink away and find somebody else. Sometimes they try to convince me. This person did not try to convince me. Like I've said, a silent call is when they call me and they can't talk. They want me to do all the talking. They tell me they're next to their wife while she's sleeping, or that the walls are thin and their roommates are home. They want me to groan. They want me to talk. They want me to do everything. They just want to hang on, listen to what I say. It's me doing all the talking. When they ask me versus just calling me, that's how I determine what call to take and not to take. If it's on the fence and somebody will write me and say, "Hey, I've got a role play where you're my stepsister," or something like that, that's fine. I'll do that. But silent calls are my number one call. I will not take. Everything else is okay with me. Well, that's not true, is it? I don't like doing domination calls. But number one is definitely no silent call. The other night, I got a call and he said, "Do you do role play?" Yes, I do. "Do you do taboo?" Yes, I do. "Do you have any limits?" I know what that means. That's code. And I say, "Yes, I do. I'm not young." And they hang up. I know what everybody means when they ask me certain questions. I know what they want. I know what they don't want to hear. And when you've done it as long as I have, you kind of know what the tone of their voice and the questions that they ask, what they want. And if I'm not into it or think it's not for me, I'll say what I need to say. And I know that they will hang up. And that's the good thing, because I don't want to start a call and have them hang up on me. I would rather tell them up front and have them really know where I stand. So in this particular case, this guy wanted a underage call. I could tell, because when they ask, "Do you have limits?" and I say my only limit is I'm not too young, they can always come back and say, "Well, I'm 62. How old are you?" "I'm 37. Well, that's young, right? If they're 62 and I'm 37, that's a pretty good age gap. And that could be good enough for some people. But in this particular case, I think this was a younger guy looking for a much younger girl, and I'm not going to do that. So I need to tell them. So, now if someone were to write to me and say, "Do I like edging calls?" I would say they're not my favorite, but I wouldn't turn them down. It's a matter of my mood and how busy I've been that night or that week. And to be honest, this last couple months have been really slow. And I think I've mentioned this before. I really don't know why. So getting a new caller who wants to edge 4 or 5 times a week and who's disabled, I think that I'm doing a good deed for someone in need. That's how I look at it. So I'm on board with edging for now. Back to the edging thing. Edging is interesting and it's very different. It's new into the phone sex culture for me. Newer, meaning it's only been a few years. I haven't had a lot of calls for edging, but I'll take it. It's not my favorite, but at least I can do it. And I try to engage the caller to talk, not just tell me to moan and groan and groan and moan and moan and moan and moan. That's tiring. And I know I get paid for it. So I just do what I'm told to do by the caller, and hopefully they're happy. Hopefully that'll cover edging and you have a better understanding That's all for now. Thank you for listening to Secrets from a Phone Sex Queen, everything you always wanted to know about phone sex and more. Please reach out to me with your questions and comments at phonesexqueen1@gmail.com. New episodes drop every Monday. Check me out on Facebook at CJ's Podcast and Instagram and TikTok at Phone Queen 1. If you're listening on YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new podcast is dropped. Until next time, stay sexy.